Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Arlington Independent School District on June 13, 2013 at 5:30 p.m. Our first agenda item is swearing in of our new school board trustees, and presiding over that swearing in is Mary Tom Kernett, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 2.
We'll go alphabetically. How about that? Okay. All right. Y'all ready? Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, great. It's my honor and privilege to be here today as Justice of the Peace to swear in John Hibbs and Jamie Sullins their oath of the school board office. Thank you very much for your service to the City of Arlington and the school board, and we appreciate your continued dedication to the education of our children. Thank you. All right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas.
In the name and the authority of the state of Texas.
I state your name.
I, John Hibbs,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
of trustee, Place 4, Arlington Independent School District
of Place 4, trustee, Arlington Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will do the best of my ability
and will do the best of my ability
to preserve, protect, and defend
to preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and this state, so help me God.
and this state, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. They act like they like me. It's right here, right?
That's me.
Oh, that's you.
No, that's you. Go ahead.
me.
All right. All right, Miss Jamie.
Yes.
All right. Repeat after me and raise your right hand. Okay. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas,
In the name and authority of the state of Texas,
I state your name.
I, Jamie Sullins,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I'll faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of trustee, Place 5, Arlington Independent School District
of trustee, Place 5, Arlington Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Judge, I'd like to thank you so much for coming here today to swear in Trustee Hibbs and myself. We have such a great opportunity in Arlington to elect individuals and the citizens that believe will represent them well in making decisions that impact the lives of our precious children. Now it's time to get to work that we were elected to do. Thank you all so much for being here. We're back to the boardroom at 7 p.m. this evening for our regular meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call this board into open session, this meeting of the Arlington Independent School District on June 13th, beginning at 7:04 p.m. I want to thank everyone for coming out to be with us this evening. Tonight, we will start our ceremony with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join Dr. Stephen Wertz in leading us. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And now, if you would, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, please silence all your cell phones, electronic devices to avoid disruptions. And we are going to our first item on the agenda for presentation, Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. At this time, we'd like to invite the United Way to give us an Arlington before and after school care report. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, President Hogg, members of the school board, Dr. Cavazos, and other school staff. I'm Cynthia Jensen with United Way Arlington, as we do each year, to come to talk to you about the status of after-school care in Arlington, a really important issue. I am going to focus, as I usually do, on the quantity. There's some information in the report, which I believe you've all been provided, about outcomes, but I'm going to focus on quantity this evening. And I should also point out that I'm going to be speaking about the school year 2011-2012, not the school year that was just ended. Just due to a number of circumstances, we had this report moved about 6 months out of place. So we'll get back to you in the fall next year about the 2012-2013 school year. So I'll just start right off with actually some pretty bad news. And compared to the previous school year, the 2010-2011 school year, there's been a pretty significant drop in the number of children that attend the traditional after-school care programs. These are programs where children finish the school day in a school setting, walk down the hall, check into a library or cafeteria or gymnasium, and then enter into an after-school program. And as you can see, we've experienced some pretty significant decreases all around. Some of it's due to fewer after-school programs. We have schools that don't have any after-school programs. It's an expense for a lot of parents that some parents are choosing to no longer take on. And you can see the average attendance also dropped, but not as much as the others. So those that are coming more regularly. The other type of after-school care that we look at is off-campus school care, and these are sites where a young person finishes school and then takes a bus or sometimes walks to an off-campus program. And you can see they've had a bit of an increase. Doesn't make up for the number of children that were lost to the on-campus programs, but there has been an increase there, continued increase in the daily attendance of children in these programs. These are examples of these are things like Boys and Girls Clubs and Parks and Recreation departments. And just to kind of put side by side the overall aim of after-school providers in our community and try to look at matches with some specific objectives from the AISD's strategic plan, you can see that after-school programs are not just babysitters. They're really there to continue the school day in many cases with these children, providing continued academic support, as well as opportunities for physical recreation to keep kids healthy, as well as healthy snacks. And they play a really key role in keeping family life balanced by having a safe place for kids to go after school. And you can see that many of these aims of after-school programs line up with a number of the objectives, particularly the one about extracurricular activities and reaching their full potential. And then before I really dig into these recommendations, I just want to iterate that even though I'm here tonight and speaking, I'm really speaking on behalf of the cadre of after-school providers or out-of-school time providers in Arlington that do this work, that have generated these recommendations to you tonight. And before I also begin, I just want to say that they all commend the school district for their tremendous response last year to our report, where school district staff really stepped up and worked with the providers around a number of their concerns around access to general curriculum timeframes so that they could match that up with their programs, access to training where appropriate. So they were really grateful for that and look forward to continuing that particular collaboration. There are 4 recommendations that they do want me to lift up. The first one has to do with their uneven relationship with principals in many of the particularly elementary schools where they serve. This is not across the board by any means, but they have definitely seen a strong correlation between programs where they don't have a close relationship or a strong relationship with the principal and how well the program's going in terms of number of kids, daily attendance, kids dropping in and out, and so forth. They see that the principal is really a key role in that. So would like to explore, and have already explored with some AISD staff, what can be done to strengthen those relationships with school principals. The second one is they'd like to also enter into a conversation around the concept of transportation for many of the off-campus sites, and would like to talk about the possibility of making a stop, a bus stop, at the off-campus sites so that children who are enrolled in these programs have an option to ride to these programs and get off at their specific program. And a couple of the providers have said if the school district would be interesting to entertain this idea, they would be willing to possibly put some of their staff on particular buses to make sure that the children are safely escorted right into an after-school care program. The third one, again, is about money, and they are experiencing difficult times like many other nonprofits, and they would like the school district to consider not charging a facility fee for the on-campus programs. They find that that would enable them to hire more tutors, possibly serve more children, but are finding that is keeping them from expanding their programs. And then finally, the last recommendation has to do with timing of planning for summer programs that are generally held in a handful of elementary schools across the city. And they would like to come to some sort of agreement by about January to know where their programs are going to be, because if you're a parent, you know by February you start thinking about where your kid is going to be in the summer, and they have been held up by saying they don't know where their programs are going to be until later in the spring. So would like to encourage some movement in this regard. And then these particular things, again, are not across the board. It's just some unevenness that they see in schools where they have the services, the after-school programs. They don't have equal access to the right kind of storage and minimum square feet per their licensing. And again, wanting to really build on that two-way flow of information between the providers and the school district about activities that happen in the school, carnivals, family literacy nights. They often feel left out of that information loop and would like to be in that loop. And then last but not least, I'm sure it's been on your mind as much as the providers, but you know, the 21st Century Grant in its current iteration is coming to an end, and that provides after-school services at a number of schools. I know that the district is going to apply again for that, but that's another concern that I know the competition for these grants are going to be fierce. So in sum, that's the very high treetops of the report this year. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer any.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Any questions from the board? Mr. Barron. Oh, Mr. Pompa. Sorry, they haven't changed the buttons yet.
He was never here, so I don't know. But anyway, thank you, President Hogg. Just want to commend the United Way and everything that you guys do to support our education. I know that the details is always, I mean, devil's always in the details, but I mean, I don't really have any issue with any of the requests that you're making. You guys are working really hard to support those things that we're trying to accomplish. We know that the very lofty and aggressive goals that we set out, we cannot achieve them by ourselves as a school district. We know we're going to have to depend on our partnerships, and so anything that we can do to support the work that you guys are doing, I'm always going to be in full support of that. And then just on the 21st Century grant, I know we're applying for that, but not only that, Dr. Cavazos and his staff have already worked to include some of the general fund resources to replace the services that we were offering to some degree at those campuses. So I know I've been out to those campuses and they've asked me, what are we going to do with all these kids that are coming every day here after school, and now 21st Century Grant is going to another part of town, even if we do get it. And I know they're very concerned about that, and the staff is well aware of that, and they've been very proactive in terms of including that in our budget so that there will be programs for those students after school. It's a key component of what we're trying to achieve, so just to reassure you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pompa. Ms. Jensen, thank you so much for United Way. In the last 3 years, United Way's given us almost over $900,000 to help with, I guess, pre-K education, so that when students come to us, they are on or above level, so that we're not already playing catch up with them when they come in. Because I think you ask our pre-K and our K teachers, there's nothing harder than you're already playing catch up with a student that directly comes in. And it's bringing those parents and getting them engaged in the education of their children. And United Way's done an outstanding job. And thank you for these after-school reports. I think we all know from these after-school care, we're not teaching these kids by ourselves. The parents are required, the community groups are required, and these are the types of reports that bring awareness to that. Thank you for all your work you do at United Way Arlington.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Cavazos, we will consider administrative appointments.
Thank you, President Hogg. At this time, I'd like to recommend the individuals discussed in closed session for the principal position of Adams Elementary School and the principal position of Ditto Elementary School.
Do we have a motion to approve the administrative appointments discussed in executive session?
Second.
I hear approval for a motion by Mr. Barron and a second by Mr. Hibbs. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All trustees in attendance voting in the affirmative. Dr. Cavazos, please introduce.
Thank you, President Hogg. At this time, it's my pleasure to present to you the new principal of our new elementary school, Adams Elementary School, Ms. Leslie Rhodes. Leslie attended the University of Arkansas and obtained her Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education. She attended University of Texas at Arlington to obtain her master's. Most recently, Leslie is the Dean of Instruction, or was the Dean of Instruction in South Grand Prairie High School, the 9th grade center. She's been an assistant principal there. She's also worked with Voyager Expanded Learning in Dallas. And she's been a district reading coordinator. And she's been a 2nd and 3rd grade teacher. Leslie, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say? Anyone you'd like to introduce?
Yes, thank you. President Hogg, members of the board, and Dr. Cavazos, it is truly an honor to be appointed as the principal of the James and Barbara Adams Elementary School. I'm truly excited about going back to my first love, elementary school. As we open the doors to a beautiful brand new school, do know that my priorities will be to ensure that students are safe and also to make sure that students are on track to meeting the district's goals and objectives. We will not stop until 100% of our students reach their full academic potential. And we will not stop until students are on track to graduate on time. And yes, that starts at elementary school. To James and Barbara Adams, in their absence, they are truly role models for educators across the nation. The service, the years of service and commitment to students is unheard of. I want them to know that I want for them to be an integral part of the Adams family, and we welcome them each and every day. To the Adams family, future students, parents, community members, and staff, I have a few words from Dr. Seuss, "Oh, the places we will go." Congratulations. Today is your day. We're off to great places. We're off and away. Oh, Adams Elementary School. Oh, the places we will go. Again, thank you for this privilege to join the Arlington ISD team and also to lead the Adams family. Before I take my seat, I want to introduce some people, just a few. To the love of my life, my mother. Yes. To my stepfather here, James. To one of my 4 brothers, Brandon. My sister-in-law, Kim. To my niece, Elida Leslie. One of 13 nieces and nephews I have. To my big sisters, Dorothy and Joanne, who is a principal in Fort Worth. To my church family, the Mount Olive Baptist Church here in Arlington, Reverend Glaspie here, Miss Rice, and Beverly, also from Fort Worth, a supporter. So thank you for always being on my side. And I cannot forget my warrior family. I have here, and I'm sure you recognize Miss Rodewalt. She was a principal in Arlington. She is now a warrior working on our campus as a testing coordinator, and also Donna Grant, who's the principal of South Grand Prairie High School. Thank you all. Without you, where would I be? So thank you for your support. I'll be calling you probably every day, so get ready. Again, thank you very much.
She got a nice building, Dr. Cavazos.
She sure did.
And just thank James and Barbara. They followed construction, I think, more than Bob and our construction team. So they've been out there every day almost. So
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce the new principal of Ditto Elementary School, Ms. Carrie Custer. Carrie obtained her Bachelor of Arts from Cedarville University and went to the University of North Texas to obtain her Master's of Education. Most recently, Carrie was the assistant principal at Meadow Creek Elementary School in HEB ISD, has been an assistant principal at Wilshire Elementary School in HEB, has taught 2nd, 5th, and 1st grade in Fort Worth ISD, and has taught 1st grade at HEB, has taught 2nd and 3rd grade in Douglas County School District, and has taught 2nd grade at a private school as well. Carrie, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say? Anyone you'd like to introduce?
Yes, definitely. President Hogue, members of the board, and Dr. Cavazos, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so excited to join the team at Arlington ISD. There's so many things that I'm thinking of planning to doing and everything like that, so I'm so excited. But I know that your team here is working in lots of ways to make sure that we empower and engage students so that they can become responsible citizens and reach their potential, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm so excited that I have this opportunity. I'm thrilled to serve at Ditto Elementary. It's such an outstanding school, and it's got such a tradition of excellence, and I want to continue that. I want to certainly thank the new members of my Ditto family back here for coming to support me today as we begin this new chapter, and I'm just so thrilled about that. My family lives in Michigan, and they couldn't be here, but my Texas family is over here to support me. Some of the teachers that I taught with 16 years ago, and they've just become my family, and some new people that support me. So I want to introduce Sheila and Crystal, Vicki, Keaton, and Tracy for coming tonight to support me. So thank you so much. I look forward to this opportunity.
congratulations, lady. You have 2 wonderful campuses there. As is our custom, please follow Mr. Hill as we go out to the lobby for a receiving line. And we ask guests, please let the board go first so we can come back. We will take a brief break, approximately 7:40 we will come back in. Thank you. now call this meeting back to order. I want to take a moment of personal privilege to congratulate Mr. Hibbs and Ms. Solons on your swearing in tonight at 5:30. Congratulations. Look forward to serving with you in the future, or now, towards the future. You're serving. We're serving right now. You're sworn in. You're official right now. So next we have no public hearing, so we'll move to the next item. And now we come to the open forum for agenda items. This is our routine part of the school board's agenda for regularly scheduled meetings. This segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to share their views with the trustees on items that are on the agenda tonight. It is not intended to be a discussion or a debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at an individual will not be tolerated. Personnel matters are not appropriate subjects for open forum. I have one card from our audience. When your name is called, please step to the podium. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. A lighted timer on the podium will assist you in pacing your presentation. A yellow light will illuminate when there is 1 minute left for you to complete your presentation. And when the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, please end your presentation. Our one card tonight is Mr. Luis Castillo talking about the proposed 2013-14 budget. Good evening, Mr. Castillo.
Good evening, President Hogg, board members, staff, Dr. Cavazos. I like to withdraw that card because, and I'd like to thank Ms. Gloria Pena for clarifying a question I had on the budget. So there's no longer a need for me to address the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Next on our agenda is action items. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Barron. At this point, we would like to. There are no action items.
Oh, sorry. I threw you off. Yeah, it's my fault. Next on our agenda is consent. Items to be withdrawn from consent agenda. Are there any items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda? There's only one, so we're not pulling that. Tonight we'll be considering items listed on your agenda under consent items. Is there Ms. Powell? None? No donations? Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Hibbs and a second by Ms. Pena. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All trustees in attendance voting in the affirmative. Next, we'll move on to our discussion items. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. At this time, we'd like to give the board a brief presentation on Nichols Junior High restructuring plan, and it's just simply an update as we move along in our restructuring of Nichols Junior High. At this time, I'd like to ask Michelle Wilmoth-Sonato to give that presentation.
It's still an open meeting with them closed. It doesn't matter.
Good evening, President Hogg, members of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Cavazos. I'd like to talk with you and give you just a little update with regard to the restructuring plan of Nichols Junior High School. You'll recall that we came to you in February and March with information relevant to the situation at Nichols Junior High School, and we submitted a restructuring plan to TEA, which was approved, and it was approved May 31st, 2013. And part of that restructuring plan is that we will conduct a comprehensive needs, a comprehensive needs assessment, and we have done that. A committee made up of campus and central office representatives, including representatives from the Texas Literacy Initiative, administration, finance, curriculum, accountability, testing and strategic planning, human resources, guidance and counseling, and campus improvement, communications, and also the outside service provider for Nichols Junior High School. So the committee was the committee that came together with Principal Harkrow. It also included me as area superintendent, and we conducted the needs assessment. The data sources that we considered included student performance data, attendance data for students and staff, the employee engagement survey, student behavior data, logs from instructional coaches, anecdotal evidence from curriculum specialists, financial records from all funding sources, walkthrough data, and information from staff interviews. We will consider as soon as they are released, after being published to this board, the parent satisfaction survey results, and then also focus groups were conducted with parents, students, and staff at Nichols Junior High School. Leslie Johnston, Coordinator for Communications, spearheaded this effort, and results are being compiled at this time. The official results will not be available regarding adequate yearly progress until August. However, based on student performance data available at this time, it is doubtful that Nichols Junior High will meet AYP in reading and math. And that means that we need to prepare for stage 5 of not meeting AYP. Reassignment of faculty and staff deemed relevant to the failure to meet AYP. This was part of the restructuring plan. We will staff the school based on instructional design rather than on the staffing calculator, which is the way that the other 12 junior high schools in Arlington ISD are staffed. We will continue to study and investigate opportunities for alternate instructional design for implementation in 2014-15. What are our next steps? We need to hire high-performing staff, design powerful professional development targeting our identified areas of focus, develop effective routines and procedures designed to meet the needs of students, as well as to ensure a safe and orderly and highly effective learning environment. Before the start of school, we will need to meet with parents, community members, and faith-based organizations to enlist their support for Nichols Junior High School. Questions?
Ms. Sullins.
Thank you, President Hogg. Thank you, Ms. Sonato. I had just a couple of questions. The parent satisfaction survey that was conducted at Nichols, was it the same survey that was conducted throughout the district at the same time, with the same questions and so forth, or was it unique in any way?
It was the same survey that was conducted at every campus.
Okay, good deal. And and is my understanding stage 5 is the final stage?
I think so. I
Okay.
believe it is.
Okay. And then with these next steps, and I think that you've listed and mentioned this evening, some weeks ago, I know that there was a fact sheet posted online that had the facts about the restructuring. I was wondering if these steps will be updated and added to the
Yes.
fact sheet. Sometimes hear some rumors in the community that I know that are not the case, whether school is, someone's taken over, or what have you. This is very proactive stance that this district's taking, and Dr. Cavazos, you've done a
Yes.
great job with that.
Thank you. And yes, Leslie will revise the information. We already did, Leslie? It'll be posted next week. Thank you, Leslie.
Okay.
It will
Thank
be.
you. Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sullins. Any other board members with comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Wilma Sonato.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Cavazos, 2013-14 proposed budget.
Thank you, President Hogg. And at this time, Cindy Powell will give a brief presentation on our proposed budget. This is very similar to the presentation that you saw last week. Ms. Powell.
Thank you. President Hogg, board members, Dr. Cavazos. Just to kind of recap where we are in the budget process, we've had two discussions. May 16th, we discussed the preliminary budget. June 4th, we discussed a proposed budget. We took direction from the board at that June 4th meeting and incorporated some additional items into the budget. So since June 4th, we revised the general fund budget for the FFC recommendations that the board approved on June 4th. And those include kindergarten TAs, adding 18 kindergarten TAs, adding 36 teachers so that the junior high schools can provide intervention periods. We increased the pay for substitutes and have implemented a training system, an online training program for substitutes, and an ambassadors club. These are the FFC recommendations that had dollars attached to them that were not already in the budget. You know, we discussed previously that there were several items, several FFC recommendations that were already in the preliminary budget. We first brought it to you on May 16th. We've also revised the debt service fund budget. We executed a bond refunding that the board had provided some parameter authority for in early May. We have now executed that, and we are recognizing a very nice savings that we'll discuss in just a few minutes on our debt service payments that are due in this next year, and so we were able to revise the budget for that. So what you have before you is a very summarized presentation of the expenditure budgets for each fund. Again, total of all funds, $587 million. The estimated tax rate we have discussed previously, and it is no change from last year. We are recommending $1.04 for our M&O tax rate, and right now we are estimating a debt service rate of 26.1 cents. And we'll talk again about that in a little more detail in just a moment. On the general fund in particular, this is a summary presentation of what that budget looks like today. We've now incorporated the items that the board gave us direction on at the June 4th meeting. And so as the budget sits at this moment, there's a $24.5 million budgeted surplus in the budget. If the budget were adopted, as it is right now, we would end the year with $177 million in fund balance. This is just a graphic representation we've shown each time on our fund balance. Again, as the budget sits at this moment, if the budget were adopted as it sits right now, we would have 4.6 months worth of operating expense in our total fund balance. The remaining things to decide we have discussed previously, and we'll discuss again on the next agenda item following this one, 2 FFC recommendations that including health insurance contributions and possibly increasing those, and salary increase and possible equity adjustments. The board discussed those at the last meeting and gave us direction to model some different scenarios. We'll bring those to you in just a few moments. So those are the remaining items that the board has indicated an interest in discussing. This is an updated multi-year forecast, and we've incorporated into this now those recommendations that the board approved from FFC recommendations at the last meeting. So what you see on this is looking across the row that says surplus and deficit, that as the budget is right now, we would have, again, under the 13-14 column, a $24.5 million budget surplus. And the remaining years on out, you can see have varying degrees of surpluses. I'll remind everybody that in that 2014-15 year, you see that surplus drops to $2.9 million. That's the year where we would incur expense to build a new elementary school in East Arlington from surplus fund balance. And again, the board has approved that plan in December. The assumptions for the model are printed at the bottom of this page, and you can see that they're pretty conservative assumptions. We are just allowing for 1% growth in property value, about a 0.5% growth in enrollment each year, which is about what we've been seeing the last year or so. We make the assumption that the state funding formulas remain unchanged through the next 4 years. And then we have again factored in the construction costs for the new elementary school in that 14-15 year. There are strategic plan costs built into the 2013-14 budget, but nothing after that, because we don't yet know what costs we may be incurring for specific strategies related to the third year of our strategic plan. So beyond the 13-14 year, there's nothing there specifically for one-time initiatives for the strategic plan. Salary increases, there are none assumed for the 2013-14 year or any future years in this particular model. And then we've also built in operating costs in the 15-16 and 16-17 year for opening 2 new elementary schools. This is a slide, again, that we've updated since the last presentation. It simply shows that once you back off of the total fund balance, the portion of fund balance that is either restricted or it's not spendable because it's not cash, what we would be left with is the unassigned fund balance. And you can see those totals across each of the years. And then at the very bottom, you see the 2 months of operating expense. That's the dollar value that the credit rating agencies want to see in our fund balance when they evaluate our credit worthiness, our strength, if you will, our financial strength. And so you can see that across the board, we are in very good shape. We have a very healthy fund balance across all of these years. We also have added in here the gas funds, which could be available, if need be, for some emergency for general operating purposes, because the credit rating agencies will allow us to, they will factor those funds in when they are evaluating our financial strength. So we show those on here as well. On the debt service fund, as I mentioned a minute ago, the board at the first meeting in May gave the superintendent parameter authority to execute a bond refunding if and when market conditions got to a certain point. And so in the last week and a half now, last 2 weeks, we have now executed that refunding. And we now have received the actual debt schedule for the principal and interest payments that we will make on these new bonds for the life of the bonds. When we originally talked about the refunding, the estimates from our financial advisors were that the refunding would save us about $421,000 a year. That was what they had modeled across all of the years. Well, once the refunding actually took place, we actually received a lower interest rate than they had originally projected, and so it actually saved us much more money. In 2013-14 year, the reduction in our principal and interest payments due to this refunding is actually $1.4 million. So we've adjusted the debt service budget to reflect the lower principal and interest payments due in the 2013-14 year. Again, the tax rate that we're estimating right now is 26.1 cents. And as we've talked about before, we'll get our certified property values in July 25th. And so we'll actually come back to the board in August and vote on the tax rates that will be in effect for this upcoming year. And that rate will be based on those certified property values. For budget purposes, we estimate what we think our values are going to be. And we talked about that at length at the last meeting. If our property values hold to what we're estimating, we may be able to lower this debt service rate just a bit, but we won't know that for sure until we get those July 25th values. This chart shows just the difference between the preliminary budget that was presented for the debt service fund May 16th and the proposed budget that is presented for your consideration this evening. And the reduction on both the revenue and the expenditure side is related to that refunding. Because we were able to lower our debt service payments, we're also able to go in and reduce the dollars we'll need through a tax levy to fund those debt service payments. So what you would wind up with if we were able to adopt this budget tonight would be a surplus or deficit of zero. No, there would be a balanced budget there. We would generate enough revenue to fully pay for all the principal and interest that is due next year. And so again, we'll adopt the budget now. We'll actually set the tax rate in August. For the other funds, other than the general fund, we've got the single slide that summarizes all the funds. The debt service fund that you see here is what we just saw on the previous slide. But we've discussed in prior meetings the natural gas fund, the construction fund, and the food service enterprise fund. So this information is strictly presented again for just your benefit, and if you've got any questions, we can certainly go back to those. Next steps. Tonight, we'll answer questions you may have about the proposed budget. Following this particular agenda item, the next item on the agenda is to consider FFC recommendations that remain. That's the remaining two items, the salary increase and potential increase in the health insurance contributions that the board will discuss this evening. So we'll take direction from the board tonight, make any changes to the proposed budget that you all direct. bring this back to you all on the 20th. On the 20th, we're scheduled to have the public hearing on the proposed budget and tax rate, and the notice for that was in the paper this past weekend. At that meeting, the board would give us any final adjustments they wanted to make to the board or to us, and it's our plan to try to adopt the budget on the 20th. Certainly, we have until June 30th by law to adopt the budget, and so if need be, we could bring it back the following week. July 25th, then, we'll receive those certified property values, and in August, we'll adopt the budget. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from board members? Perfect. Ms. Powell, as we've discussed this in weeks past, and we have another week next week, we look forward to another budget.
Thrilling discussion.
Next week. It's been wonderful. So with that, we'll go on to action items. Consider 2013-14 Financial Futures Committee recommendations. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Hogg. And this, we're bringing back the FFC recommendations and some adjustments that we've talked about the previous board meeting. And so, Cindy?
Trying to get the PowerPoint set here. There we go. We're ready to go. All right. Thank you, President Hogg, board members, Dr. Cavazos. On April 18th, the FFC came before the board, made recommendations for next year's budget. The board has approved all the FFC recommendations at the June 4th meeting, with the exception of 2 items that the board is still discussing. Those are health insurance contributions and salary increases. On health insurance contributions, the FFC recommendation was that the district reinstate its contribution to $260 per month for health insurance. And again, the background on this, prior to the 11-12 year, the district contributed $260 a month for all employees for the health insurance. We reduced that amount in the 11-12 year because of state funding reductions and our need to make some significant budget cuts. So currently, the district contributes $225 a month for professional employees who participate in health insurance and $240 a month for all the other workers, the auxiliary workers and paraprofessionals who participate in health insurance. The TRS Active Care is the insurance plan we participate in, and that plan is administered by TRS. They have announced very significant increases in premiums and some significant cuts to benefits in the next plan year. The cost to restore the health insurance contribution to $260 per month for all employees is $1.8 million. And then if the board were to consider any additional contributions beyond that point, each $10 increment per month would cost another $584,000 annually. The board at the last meeting asked us to have some additional conversation about benefits, what we offer, and what some other options might be. And so we've got several slides that do that. Currently, for medical benefits, again, we participate in TRS Active Care. There are 3 plans that employees can choose from. There were 4. One of those plans, though, was dropped entirely this past year by TRS Active Care for this upcoming year. We also offer a GAP plan that has to be coupled with the high deductible plan, the TRS Active Care high deductible plan. We also offer a flexible spending account that employees can choose to take. Beyond the medical benefits, then, there are several voluntary products, including cancer insurance, life insurance, vision, dental insurance that employees can select from. We've had some conversations this past week with our benefits consultants about a couple of different types of benefit offerings, one being health savings accounts, another being health reimbursement accounts. This slide summarizes very briefly, at a very high level, kind of some of the particular points about each one, the characteristics, I guess, of each one. Health savings accounts are generally paid for by and funded by employees, generally not. You don't find that employers contribute to health savings accounts. They do reimburse individuals for qualified out-of-pocket medical expenses. The contributions that an individual makes to these plans are tax-free. The balances stay with the employee. They belong to that employee forever. You do have to couple your HSA with a high deductible insurance plan. And individuals cannot have both a health savings account and either a GAP plan or what's called the unlimited flexible spending account. So you have to choose. Either you would have an HSA account, or you would have a GAP plan, or you would have an unlimited flexible spending account. And also, I guess of note, on health savings accounts, you can only spend out of there what's already in the account versus on the the flex savings accounts, they pre-fund those. If you are going to determine that you're going to contribute X dollars a month for the planned year, that total balance is available to you immediately. And so that is one significant difference there between those two types of plans. On the health reimbursement accounts, those are typically funded by employers. And again, they will reimburse individuals for qualified out-of-pocket medical expenses. The reimbursements are tax-free to the employee. The unused balances continue to roll forward from year to year, but once an employee leaves the employer, those funds come back to the district. They are often coupled with a high deductible plan, but do not have to be. There are certain things to consider when we look at these other types of benefits for employees. First of all, in our situation, employee input is important. We have an insurance committee made up of employees representing the various employee organizations. They have discussed the health savings accounts in the past, and they have determined that that was not a product that they felt like was right for our employee group. They have opted instead for a GAP plan. And this continues to be their recommendation. Health savings accounts, those can be established at any time, and individuals can actually do that. We could either offer it as an employer-provided benefit plan where individuals could come and set up a health savings account, but individuals can also go to their local bank and create their own health savings account. So they can establish that at any time. Health reimbursement accounts. Technically, the health reimbursement account should mirror our plan year, which begins on September 1. And so the point here would be that we are already in June, and so it would be difficult for us to get a health reimbursement account in place. We could do it by September 1, but that is something that we would want to make sure that we started with the start of our insurance plan year. There's really no open enrollment required. Once the employer determines what group of employees would be covered by a health reimbursement account, then those employees would automatically be set up for that benefit, so we would not have to go through an open enrollment period. Employee education is important for both of these, especially for the HSAs, and it would be important that they have this information prior to open enrollment, so as they're making the selection about what kind of insurance coverage to take, they would have this information about either a health savings account or a health reimbursement account if we were going to offer one of those, so that they could make informed choices during open enrollment. TRS sets the open enrollment periods. For TRS Active Care. The primary open enrollment period has already passed. It takes place in May. There is one more window in August. It's really designed for new employees, but anyone can come back along and make a change. But we have already gone through the main open enrollment period for this upcoming benefits year. The other item that the board wanted to discuss and wanted us to bring back information on was the salary increase. FFC recommended that all employees receive a significant pay raise. They did not define a percentage. They just left it at significant. And as we've mentioned before, the estimated cost of a 1% raise is $3 million, a little over $3 million. And so you can see on this slide increments of varying degrees above that, 2%, 2.5%, and 3%. A 3% raise for all employees would cost $9.1 million. We've also been looking at the possibility of equity adjustments for teachers to improve our competitive position in the marketplace, and we've talked about increasing the beginning teacher salary. We have modeled various things, we've sent some information out on this, but In looking at across this slide, you will see the varying models that we have worked on, everywhere from a 2.5% raise to a 3% raise. We've also got varying degrees of starting salary on here, everywhere from $47,500 up to $50,000 starting salary for teachers. We've also looked at equity adjustments at various points along the teacher salary schedule. Looking at the total cost of these, you can see down at the bottom that a 3% raise, this is the one on the very far right-hand side, 3% raise with a $50,000 starting teacher salary and equity adjustments for steps 1 through 15 would be $11.9 million. And likewise, you can see the other totals across the page. We had talked previously about the 2.5% model and the 3% model. The board asked us at the last meeting to go back and look at a model that would give a 3% raise and have starting salaries of $48,000 and also $50,000 with the equity adjustments, so we've done that. The one in particular that we want to bring to your attention and highlight is the one that is here on the far right-hand side of the schedule, a 3% raise with a $50,000 teacher salary and then equity adjustments on steps 1 through 15. It's hard to read the numbers on this, but Arlington is highlighted in yellow across the comparison schedule. What this comparison model represents are our assumptions of the raises that these other districts will give, and that's very important to note. Not very many of them have actually set their salary increases yet for next year. So we've made assumptions that everyone gives a 3% raise. Fort Worth has proposed and discussed publicly a 4% raise, so that's what's modeled here. But again, these are based on assumptions for all districts. With a beginning salary of $50,000, we would rank number 1, be tied with Irving for that on the beginning teacher salary schedule. The 5-year and 10-year increments, you can see, put us at ranking of 4 out of the 16 districts that are compared here. And then you can see again how we fare across the salary schedule. This particular slide shows a summary of the impact of these different models on the budget. What's highlighted in green is what is in the budget today. That's that proposed budget that we talked about at the start of the previous agenda item. That includes everything that the board has had us put into the budget up to this point. And so you can see that there's a $24.5 million surplus at the moment on the proposed budget. Under the section that has additional increases, this is where you see the impact of a salary increase, equity adjustments, and that FFC recommendation of the additional insurance. The model on the very far right-hand side does not include the $1.8 million assumption for increasing health insurance, but that certainly is something that we can look at and discuss. Again, you see the line highlighted in green at the bottom that is entitled operating surplus or deficit. This would be the impact if we were to adopt the salary increase, the equity adjustments, and the health insurance premiums if appropriate. So you can see where that would leave us on each of these different models and the fund balance. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Powell, for the presentation. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. Ms. Powell, as part of the request to look at the $50,000 starting pay, we also wanted to flatten out the pay for the first several years. Is that in that
Yes, absolutely it does, and thank you for bringing that up. This particular model, starting with year 0, has a beginning salary, $50,000, and what we've done is pretty much compress the increase across the steps, the years of salary, if you will, from 0 up to 5 or up to 7. The increase is very compressed. It's about $50 per step, but again, it's a very high starting salary.
And then does it stay level after that, or are the increments at 10 and 15 also
The increments
a jump?
vary. There'll be varying amounts. They're not a consistent amount at any point across the salary schedule. They may be $200 up to $600, $700, depending on where you are across that the schedule.
And as this is written now, does every employee get a 3% raise
Yes.
at least?
Absolutely. Every employee gets a 3% raise. Employees in steps 1 through 15 on this particular model, teachers with experience, years experience from 1 to 15, will get equity adjustments to bring them to the points you see here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dr. Rush.
Thank you, President Hogg. I was looking at the previous presentation on the multi-year forecast. With this modeling included into that multi-year forecast, it would seem to me that the only time that we would be at a deficit would be from the new school in the 14-15.
That is correct.
But in that situation, right now, the forecast that you have is taking it with including the budget versus out of our revenue fund, correct?
Well, yes, you have to, we take the money out of fund balance. I mean,
Right.
that's what that model shows. So it's shown as an expenditure, and we're expending that surplus fund balance, so.
Okay.
And I
So-
do have this model, I can show you the model with this particular salary, combination of salary and equity adjustments built into it. I do have that. I can get to that here in just a sec, I think. Actually, I think that's back on the other one. Can we pull the other presentation up right quick? But you're right, the only year that there is a deficit factored in is that 14-15 year, and it's a $9 million deficit. And that's because we're using surplus fund balance to build to construct the elementary school.
Okay. And this is the model that is on the far right, with the equity adjustments,
Yes.
1 through 15. Okay. Okay. That's all I have right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Rush.
I do have that, if you'd like to see that forecast here. You see the $9 million deficit there on 14-15.
And Ms. Powell, that's assuming the money comes out of our general fund.
Yes.
Whereas it could officially come out of our fund balance to still,
Well, and
it's all
that's
coming out
what-
of the same thing.
Yeah, this would come out of the fund balance. That's where we would get the resources to cover that deficit.
Any other board members with questions at this time? Ms. Powell, let me ask you on the health insurance. What do you think is going to happen to insurance in the future?
I think that's the million-dollar question. There is a lot of uncertainty. We've talked with our benefits administrator, and we've had several conversations over the last couple of months about this, and he keeps expressing to us that the expression he keeps using is it's changing daily. The information through the Affordable Care Act, the specifics regarding the health exchanges that will be put into place, that keeps changing. The health exchanges were supposed to be up and running in March. They weren't ready, so the federal government postponed that now till October. I think it's still, there's still a lot of work to be done to even get those set up. There is a lot of uncertainty there right now.
And we don't know what pricing is going to be for the health exchanges.
No, we do not.
Which is the public market to buy individual health insurance.
Right. If you don't have, yes, if you don't have your own health insurance through your employer or private plan, you can go to the exchange and get your health insurance. Pricing has not been set on that yet.
I say that for Ms. Powell of I have hesitation to do a lot to our insurance right now because of the exchanges, because of the changes that are occurring what's happening in the future. I think our government entities, along with the private sector entities, no one knows what 2014, which is the biggest year in the Affordable Care Act, to have changes with those changes, because the exchanges are not going to be bad insurance, but no one knows what they're going to cost, because we're part of the federal exchange instead
Right.
of being on our own exchange. So we're still waiting for the plans. It's supposed to roll out October to be eligible January 1, because January 1, everyone's required to buy insurance by law.
Correct.
So with those exchanges, and then we face concerns, which I know we've talked about in the past, of could substitute teachers be required to offer insurance if we have to offer insurance to subs that sub more than 30, which we don't think is going to be an issue, but we've got to see how that calculates.
Right. You know, we've had that conversation before. You know, there are two tests. You have to, under the Affordable Care Act, you have to provide an affordable health care plan to 95% of your employees. And part-time workers, anyone who works more than 30 hours, that applies to. And so we've done some work to look at substitutes. We found that there's a very small number of them that work on average more than 30 hours a week. And so when you add those to our total regular employee base and then look at who we offer insurance to, we are offering insurance to 95% of our employees. So therefore, we would not be required to offer health insurance specifically to substitutes. We would not be required to do that. The other piece of it then is that definition of affordable. We have to make sure that we offer affordable health care plan to our employees, and that's defined as 9.5% of your annual income. We've done a little work on that. It looks like, for the most part, we think we're all right. We think there may be a very, very small number of people who possibly, we're still trying to vet out who these individuals are. We've run some reports and found a very small number of people who salaries might be low enough that 9.5% of that is more than the cost of their health insurance premiums. And so that we're evaluating that now. But I think for the most part, we're okay there.
And that's a penalty just per employee?
Yes.
That we pay, not all employees,
Correct.
just per
On that
employee
piece, that would
falls.
just be per the affected employee.
And if we weren't offering 95%
Then-
insurance, that's $2,000
Right.
per
all,
employee. Every single
80,
one, not
100
just the
of them.
ones.
That's exactly right.
That's a pretty big penalty.
That is hefty.
That's a penalty we can't afford to have.
Correct.
Correct. With that, Ms. Powell, I like the idea of exploring some of these health reimbursement arrangements, not only just for our employees that have insurance, but maybe for the ones that don't, to offer it part of their total compensation plan in the future, because right now we're only compensating the employees that have insurance with us versus the ones that don't
Correct.
have insurance with us. So I have to take into account, do we put it into salary or do we put it into insurance? I think that's a decision that must be discussed. Mr. Pompa.
Thank you, President Hogg. And Ms. Powell, can you bring up the projections with the last scenario
Sure.
that we
Let me
looked at?
switch back to.
And we've had a lot of discussion about, do we include some additional funds for the health insurance or not? And I think, just kind of bottom line is, I'm looking at, we're probably going to spend somewhere around $10 million on raises, and we can, slice and dice it any which way we want, whether we do it as a 3% or 2.5%, and then fund the difference in the healthcare costs. I totally agree with Mr. Hogg, Mr. Hogg, that this healthcare law really, it's a mess. That we're this close to such an impactful piece of legislation, we still don't know all the rules. And so I'm real hesitant to do anything with that. Also, I would tend to lean more towards a 3% and nothing on the health insurance, because then that really benefits all of our employees as opposed to only the employees that partake in our health insurance benefits. And so, frankly, I'd rather just let them have the money and let them figure out what to do with it, whether they want to put it to their healthcare costs or do something else with it. I'm looking at this slide here, and even with a very aggressive salary structure, and we started a year ago a year and a half ago with our strategic plan and saying we want to be the best. And really, in order to be the best, we have to attract the best and retain the best. And I think that the message that we send with that $50,000 starting salary and jumping right up to the top of the districts that we compare ourselves to sends a message that we're serious about this. This isn't just a plan that we came up with and is collecting dust somewhere in Dr. Marcello's office. We're really living and breathing this plan. And so I fully support making that, because I want to be able to have the first shot at the best and the brightest graduates from UTA and all our wonderful universities around here. I want them to also be thinking that the first place they want to come to work for is Arlington, because we have a great environment, we got a great plan on being a tremendous district, and we're going to compensate them as well. So fully support that. You know, again, the only trouble is that 14-15, as Mr. Hogg pointed out, and that's because we are choosing to fund an elementary school out of our general fund rather than bonds, and that's
Correct.
I mean, that is, in terms of being financially very responsible, fiscally very responsible, there's nothing better than that, because we're not accumulating debt to build a $24 million school. So I don't think that's an issue. We have plenty of money in our reserve fund to cover that. So I've been up here one that has said I will not sign for a deficit in a budget, but that's only because we're funding that school out of our general fund, so I would not have any issues with that. So I just really like, and thank you for modeling this, and I know that it took a lot of extra work with all our creativity up here, and do this and do that, and can you model this, and can you model this, and I know every time we do that, that generates, several hours of work for you and Mr. Dolan and your staff down there, but we do appreciate it. I think you've put together some really good outlook on what we can do for our district. Now, with that, are we able to recommend this, make a motion specifically for this to be added to the budget, correct?
Mr. Pompa, this is a discussion action item, so we could guide staff to add this directly to the budget and include it, and then next week we could just vote on the budget as a whole and include that, or we could discuss it tonight, have them include it, and then have the final vote next week.
Okay, well, I guess everybody knows where I stand. I'd be ready to make a motion if the board is ready, but I know there's some other lights on.
We have a couple more speakers, Mr.
Yeah, there's
Pompa,
a
so
couple more
if you
lights
wouldn't
on,
mind, hold
so
off.
no problem.
Mr. Hibbs.
Ms. Powell, I appreciate you doing all this work, and Tony, Mandy, I know you guys have been working frantically, and Tony, you've got your name on this piece, so I know you've taken credit for a little bit. So I am in support of the changes that has been made, especially for the starting salary for the new teachers. I believe that all the way to year 14, there's been the adjustments made that are very positive for the teachers and within the district. If I'm reading your slide right, can you go back to that last slide prior to the questions, right there? No, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm missing.
I've got two different presentations up here at the moment. So.
Go back to the one where you had the everything included, health insurance, everything.
Okay, right, I think that's up here in the other one.
Okay, I think that's. Okay, that last column that you have, column 5, on that particular one, that's showing the 3%. It's showing the equity adjustments, but it's not showing the insurance, correct?
Correct.
So if the insurance was brought into this one, it would be just shy of $14.4 million. I think about 7,000 shy. 14,393.
Well, actually, you would lower that, that $12.5 million would be lower by $1.8 million.
It would be
Yeah.
surplus.
Yeah, that
Okay,
line across the bottom
okay,
is the surplus.
okay,
So
the
if
surplus would
yeah,
be,
so if we restored the health
taken down,
insurance
okay.
to 260,
Okay.
that would cost another $1.8 million to
Okay.
lower that.
1.8 here.
Be 10.7 million.
Okay, 10 point. Okay, I was looking at that column. I'm glad that you corrected me on that. I was looking at, that would be increased by that amount. If we were to go with the 3% plus, because there would be, for that year 1 to 14, there, it is a little bit higher for the equity adjustment. The 1.8 is rounded around 0.6%. So in total, it would be a 3.6% adjustment if you added in both insurance and with the 3% increase.
In terms of the percent of raise that would equate to?
Right.
Well, we really would not factor in the health insurance as part of that percentage. Everybody gets a 3% raise, and then the equity adjustments are on top of that. So and the equity adjustments are applied to steps 1 through 15.
15, right.
So the individuals on those particular steps would actually receive a raise that is higher than 3%.
Right.
Okay, so in that
Yeah,
range
yeah.
would be.
And I know that that's going to be adjusted for certain columns there. I know where you're going with this. Is I was looking at the 1.8 for the health
Right.
insurance. On that particular one, since we don't have 100% on it, then it couldn't be equated as a 0.6% additional. Okay, I'm answering my own question there in total. If there is a lot of uncertainty with health insurance, and anything that you know that we've seen in, from any of our insurance individuals or anything, if we made the adjustment to restore it back to the 260, and we had new guidelines come in, is there anything prohibiting us to make changes then, you think, in future years?
No, we are required to contribute that $225
Right.
is the minimum, but, you know, as long as we would not go below that, you could still make whatever change you wanted to make. Now, you would not, we would probably do that as part of the normal budget process, I would think, but there would be nothing to prohibit us from making that change.
Okay. Because when we made the change a couple of years ago, it was because that we were in that dire budget crunch. We were really thinking that we were going to have to, we had to look at areas to cut back, and at that point, $1.8 million was enticing rather than losing teachers' positions. And that was one of the things that we were facing. Okay. I know that we've got some uncertainty with the new health care legislation and there being potential changes. I do believe that we are in a good financial state, and I would probably be leaning to restore the 1.8 along with the 3% raise.
Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. Excuse me. We're required to offer health care to all employees, right? That's next year's deal.
Yes, anybody that works more than 30 hours, we have to offer it to.
Okay. It has to be affordable.
Yes,
Does it have to be affordable for their families too, or just the part that applies to the employee?
just to the part that applies to the employee.
Okay.
And Mr. Barron, with the health care changes in the law, Ms. Powell, if you don't mind, I don't think it's a good change. You're not required to offer insurance. You can pay a penalty fee and not offer insurance as a company
That is true, yes.
over 50 employees. Also, this is one of the things they don't like to talk about in the changes. You're actually not required to offer insurance to the families. You're only in the healthcare laws required to offer insurance to the employees only, which is a very slippery slope. I don't think it was a good change, but just some of the rules of the law, those are two of the rules that do fall within the healthcare.
If an employee that we're required to offer insurance for or rejects the insurance that we provide because they have it someplace else, let's say, does that affect our numbers
Well, our.
on that 95% business?
Well, no, because we've offered it. You just have to offer it, and they don't have to take it, we have to offer.
And it has to be affordable.
Yes.
And who decides that?
Well, that's going to be defined as 9.5% of their annual income.
So it's
Who
based-
monitors that? I don't know if that will be, I don't know which agency will manage that. Health and Human Services or IRS,
I think it's the
actually.
IRS,
Yeah,
Ms. Powell.
So that'll vary by the employee.
yes.
Yeah. So that number will be set by our lowest paid employee, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Can we get a rough on the dollar amount of insurance, of healthcare insurance increases that are coming up for this coming year on, just say on the employee only?
In terms
You
of
know,
the.
how many dollars is it going up? The slide said it was a percent, but we don't know a percent of what.
Right, and we've got that, again, that was on one of the slides we showed last time, so I think I could still get to it here. Just a second. We've got 3 slides here. We looked at these last week. The column on the far right shows the annual increase in premiums under the TRS Active Care. This is the high deductible plan. So you can see that depending on which coverage you pick on the high deductible plan, you can see what your premium increase will be. This is Plan 2.
The high
Down at the
deductible
bottom,
plan, high deductible plan is the lowest cost to the
Yes,
employee. Okay.
It is, and because you have the highest deductible before benefits start paying out. Also, at the bottom of these slides, you'll see changes in the plan, so the benefits are changing as well. So not only are the premiums going up, deductibles are going up, and out-of-pocket costs are going up as well. And then this last one is Plan 3. There were no benefit changes on this particular plan, but you can see that the premium increases are significant.
Okay, thank you on that. Since next year's insurance is uncertain, I think we all agree on that. The only thing that is certain is the fact that the rates are going up, right? Okay. I'll go back to that in a minute. Should we approve putting that $50,000 starting pay, 3%, column 5, was it column 5? Into the budget? Can we release the specifics of that between now and next week so that everybody out in the audience can see what it really would be by years?
Yes.
And then I am going to agree with Mr. Hibbs that I would like to see us do that and restore the insurance to $260. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Ms. Pena?
Okay, let's say we do the 50,000 or the 3% and the equity adjustments and the insurance. That $9 million deficit will become $10 or $11 million deficit?
No, the $9 million is, yes, I'm sorry, you're right. The $9 million would become 11.
Okay. So we have to consider that as well. And, well, I would love to do everything for the employees. My concern is, one of the things that Mr. Pompa highlighted was in giving the 3% across the board, everyone is getting something. If we restore the $10, then only select group of employees get something. So they're getting more than the others, in essence, if we give the select group that restored amount. And that was one of the points Mr. Pompa was making, was that giving the 3%, we could give 2.5% and then restore the insurance. Or we could get 3% and everyone gets something. So, you know, I'm weighing that myself, and I'd love to be generous, but I want to make sure when we get to that deficit point that we're talking about, even though we have some funding, we aren't hitting ourselves harder than we need to. Because these are ongoing, these will be recurring costs for us. And then if we give another pay raise next year, we continue to add to that one-year deficit. And we'll bounce back given what we know now, but these are only projections. So that's all I wanted to say was to, everything else Mr. Pompa said I agreed with, and I'd like us to decide on it myself tonight so that we can give staff time to get all this out to the employees and explain to them what decision we make tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Pena. Ms. Solons?
Thank you. Ms. Powell, can you give me a sense of the history of equity adjustments in the district? How long ago has it been since we've sat and looked at this and looked at where we need to be, you know, making a large change in the equity adjustments across the board?
We've looked every year at the comparison schedule and see where we are. Last year, we made some small equity adjustments on steps 1 through 5. A number of years ago, we made some significant equity adjustments, I believe, upon the top end of the teacher salary schedule. And so as we feel like we've got an issue that needs to be addressed, we may target equity adjustments to specific places. So I can't give you exact dates on when we did what, but you know, even last year we gave some small equity adjustments on a few steps.
I know we make some minor changes over time, but in terms of a significant one, it's been a number of years.
It's been a long time. And I believe the last time we made a significant one, it was up on that top end. That's why you see when you look at our salaries at the 25-year experience level and 30-year, they're back up towards the top of all those districts.
And I'm not sure, this may be going back too far too, but what was the outcome? You know, when we had a significant change, was it we had an increase in quality of applicants, or increase
in that particular one, and I can't answer that question exactly, but you know, that was a deliberate effort to compensate employees who had significant amounts of experience. I don't know that we were going out in the marketplace at that point and then hiring people in at those experience levels. I don't have that kind of information.
I see. Well, thank you, and thank you for this presentation this evening. I think this is very interesting. I think it's aligned well with the strategic plan that we have all visited so much about, and I think that it's a critical next step. And I think we're now just, for me, I'm down to the calibration point on this. And my earlier, you know, we've talked about what to do with insurance back and forth, whether we reinstate the $1.8 million. Ms. Pena, I understand your concerns, and I also understand Mr. Hibbs and Mr. Barron's as well. It's a significant amount of money with a lot of uncertainty in insurance. I'm still going to be looking forward to listening to the rest of my colleagues here for the next few minutes on that.
Dr. Reich.
Thank you, President Hogg. Ms. Powell, earlier you showed us a slide with the equity adjustments and our position, where we would be. Could you bring that back up, please?
This particular slide shows just that what we were referring to as column 5, which is the 3% salary increase, and then the equity adjustments on steps 1 through 15, and setting that beginning teacher salary at $50,000.
Okay. And if we looked at equity adjustments years 1 through 20, the column 4, where would that place what is now number 9 in that 20 years mark, do you think?
I think we can, if we want to extend it on out, what we would do is set that 20-year mark at a particular point and then back into the equity adjustments it would take to get there. There are not a significant number of people beyond that 20-year mark and on, so I don't think that would be a significant cost to go back and do that. I think probably, I think for probably $100,000 or less, we could give equity adjustments up at that point and move that one up in the ranking. I'd have to go back and look, but I think given the number of people that I think are in that experience range there, that it would be somewhere around that 100,000 or less.
So with the column 4, that's about another $2 million added. Column 4, I'm sorry, on the
Oh, I'm sorry,
on the other
this-
slide.
okay.
That's what I'm trying to correlate that column to.
One thing we did that was different between what you see described here in that column 4 and column 5 was where we put like that year 5 salary is actually on this particular model not as high as it was on the model described in column 4, right slide there. So that helped us bring that cost down between the two variations, that and the fact that we did not go all the way up to step 20. The big deal there is that on that lower end, we really compressed the salaries and did not set that year 5 salary as high as we had on that previous model.
So you're saying then, long day, I guess. The additional $2 million investment for that column 4 on that district 20 years.
In column 4, a lot of that difference is because we were looking at a year 5 salary that was significantly higher than what you see here. It was more like 51, 1 or 50. And I'd have to look again at the number, but it was significantly higher than that 50,560. And so the equity adjustments to get us to that point were more costly.
Okay.
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 And then we gave equity adjustments all the way up to that 20-year mark on that model.
Okay. So it's not a situation that by not really focusing on years 1 through 20, we're not doing a disservice to those folks.
Right.
Okay.
And you know, the bulk
Okay.
of
I
our
was concerned about
teachers
that.
are on the lower range of the experience, years of experience. And so there are more of them on that lower range. So when you apply an equity adjustment to them, there are more of them there to apply it to. So the numbers add up faster than they do when you're applying an equity adjustment up on the upper range.
Right. Okay. Well, with all the information that's been discussed thus far, I see both schools of thought on 3%, let's not do anything with the health insurance, or 2.5% and health insurance, or as Mr. Hibbs was talking about, let's put the insurance in and the 3%. I see the logic of not rewarding everybody is, I guess, the point there. Let everybody spend it, give everybody the 3% versus a 2.5% and only the insurance. But I don't know that I agree with it. I think I'm leaning more towards what Mr. Hibbs is saying, 3% to take care of those individuals that we did cut the insurance because of the budget crisis. In the way I'm looking at it, if we do 3% without anything with that insurance, then we're actually, in my mind, potentially it could be viewed as cheating those folks with not giving them the health insurance increase back to what it was with the budget crisis and cuts that we had before. We're in a very healthy financial state. We are very fiscally minded and responsible, and we absolutely are steadfast in not approving a deficit budget, and the only reason that 14-15 deficit is there is because we're pulling it out of fund balance. If we don't have that school, we're still in the black. So I really think, these are most of the same employees that on the health insurance that took that cut stuck with us. We've had minimal increases. We've had some salary increases, but we've had very minimal increases. And they've stuck with us, and we've put together this strategic plan. And there are uncertainties as far as health care in the future. Doesn't mean we can't back it out. I don't really foresee that happening. Cost of living increase, Ms. Powell, would you say is probably about 2%, pretty
Yes.
much? So you throw that in the mix, you're really looking at 1% of a true increase versus just a cost of living adjustment. So because of that, I'm thinking it's very fiscally responsible to treat the staff this way, to give them that 3% and give those that are on the health insurance back what they had already lost previously.
Thank you, President Hogg. Yeah, I think we have to address that blip at 20 somehow so that the folks in the outside world can figure out what's going on there. I understand. It's driven by the fact that we, in our discussion, said we wanted to increase the starting pay and we wanted to flatten the pay up to that 5-year point. And that's what you're just talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. To get people in the door at a higher salary and keep them, and then after 5 years, reward them for sticking around. Okay. Regarding the 14-15 deficit, pay is forever. Insurance is year by year. So next year, we envision a great deal of changes in our insurance plan anyway. So by restoring the insurance this year, there's no guarantee that we will even have that kind of insurance next year. We might have something entirely different plan. So that part of the deficit that this would add to is very smoky right now. It could be there, it could not be there, because we don't know what's going to happen with insurance. We do know what's going to happen this year, and that the rates have gone up. And we reduced the insurance on folks during the deficit, during the crisis year. And all we're doing now is really just restoring it back. And the circular logic there is that, well, those are folks who were getting something that other people weren't getting anyway. Yet, this insurance is available to every employee, and some choose not to use it. So I'm in favor of column 5 and the insurance.
Mr. Pompa.
Thank you, President Barrett. Ms. Powell, can you bring that 5-year projection slide that you had with the last scenario, with scenario 5? I totally understand, especially since it was something that was taken away at one point with the health insurance. I wasn't here during that time, but I know those were difficult decisions. And, you know, I have a high degree of respect for my colleagues here. I guess as a small business owner for 20 years, used to spending my own money, I think of these fiscal matters a little bit differently because that money comes out of my pocket. So I look at this a little bit differently, and I've learned to, you know, as a small business owner, there's been years that I have good years, and there's been years that are not so good. In the 20 years that I've been in business, and I always look at the future, and I'm looking at what do I have today, what am I going to have tomorrow, what am I going to have 5 years from now, and taking into account some of the decisions I'm going to have to make. Am I going to have to buy another house, or have more kids? Hopefully not any more kids, since I already have 5. But there's some things that I have to look at and consider as I look forward, at the decisions I make today. And I think we're in a very strong financial position today. There's no doubt about it. But looking out into the future, we're still showing surpluses, and that's great. My only concern, and I would ask everyone to consider this, is you know, looking at $9 million deficit next year, maybe $11 million with adding the insurance. On top of that, what about raise for next year? You know, generally, there's going to be, unless the only times we don't do raises is when we've lost money from the state, generally. So, I mean, even a cost of living increase is 2%, and maybe even higher if inflation gets going a little bit. So it could be 2, it could be 3% cost of inflation. Each of those is roughly about $3 million. And so, you know, we're not leaving ourselves a whole lot of wiggle room if we take an additional $2 million out. And, okay, so let's pull out 14, 15 with the fact that, okay, we accept we're going to have a deficit that year. We're going to fund it from our reserve funds. But you look at 15, 16, 16, 17, you pull out $2 million, you're about at 5.2. That's not even enough to give our employees a raise at that time of 2%. And so what are we going to do? Are we not going to give raises for 2 years? Or are we going to give raises and then go into a deficit situation? So, you know, consider those years moving forward. I think we had a great year this year from the legislature, and we appreciate the fact that they've righted some of the wrong that they did the last time. I don't see that we're going to get an additional $20 million like we did this year in the next biennium. Nobody can predict the future, but what we can go with is your projections, which, I mean, that's your job, that's your business, is to put these projections together, and generally you're pretty accurate with that. And so, you know, I would just ask us all to consider, not just now that we have plenty of cash today, we do, but at the same time is, let's look at next year, let's look at the year after that, and the year after that, and make sure that we have some of that financial flexibility to do the things that we need to do in the future. We're going to continue to be very aggressive with our strategic plan about going out and hiring the best and retaining the best and that kind of thing. And I haven't heard anybody tell me that people are quitting over the health insurance or that people are not coming to work for us because we don't pay enough on health insurance. I have heard that people say we just don't pay enough when they're starting out. So that's why I'm addressing that piece in terms of utilizing our resources in a very strategic manner. And so, again, great deal of respect for you guys, what y'all are saying. I totally get that, and the desire to provide our staff with some additional resources. But at the same time, I'm just looking at the future years, and I'm a little bit concerned about adding more cost to that. Thank you.
Ms. Pena.
Each one of us got the sheet that Mr. Drollinger created, and I just did a calculation on some of the numbers he gave us, and to address the equity issue for the out years past the 15. We have 327.5 teachers that have 17 to 25 years. We have 178 teachers that have 178 teachers that are between the 26 and 30 years. That's not a significant amount, comparatively speaking, that we have 4,000 teachers. So it's not a big chunk to make that equity adjustment, I would think, as far as cost to us when we have these employee numbers. And I agree with you. That's such a significant drop from that line we're trying to get to, that I agree with you on the changing that equity up.
Can I say something real quick on that? I forgot to say. You're absolutely right. It wouldn't cost us that much, and we could probably even adjust some of the steps in between that they're not so aggressive to pretty much make it a wash. But I do want to point out that a lot of those districts that jump ahead of us, remind you guys, they're districts that are not anywhere around here. We're not competing with those districts for people. And the point of this is to make us more competitive when we are going out to hire new talent, okay? Well, my point of it is that. That may not be yours, but my point of this is I'm trying to attract new talent. Can you go back to that so we can highlight those districts that jump ahead of us there? I think I saw Katy, Northside ISD, a couple of other districts that are, I can't, It's hard to read, okay.
At this, on the 20-year mark,
Yeah.
the ones that.
Aldine, Fort
yeah.
Bend, Katy,
Yes.
Northeast,
Irving, Keller,
North Side.
Northside.
So 5 of those districts that are ahead of us at that point, we don't compete with for personnel. So I know it looks kind of funky there, and it's not, we could probably make that adjustment without spending a whole lot of extra money. I mean, we could adjust those to make it a wash, but just reminder that those districts are not districts that we're not competing with for personnel. In terms of being strategic about how we utilize our resources, consider that. Thank you, Ms. Peña. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, just wanted to make it a point of the number of employees or teachers that were in this group based on this information that was provided to us. And it's not a significant number. So that was the point I wanted to make.
Thank you. Ms. Powell, my colleagues, Dr. Cavazos, we've been through some really hard budget years. This is a much better position to be in. I'm thrilled that we're having these discussions on the best way to invest dollars. With that in mind, I wanted to remind the board, and in recent budget history, we haven't overrun budgets. It's been my experience over the past few years that generally by the time we get to the end of the year, that we have very conservative assumptions when we're building our budget, and I support that, and I believe that's exactly how we should do it. But by the time, the reality at the end, sometimes there's more room. As in my tenure, we've been fortunate that that's the way the cards have fallen. Now, I understand the reason the assumptions are put together like that, Ms. Powell, and exactly how I would do it. I support that entirely, but sometimes we have, at the end of the day, a much better situation. And Mr. Pompa, I'm with you. I like to make sure that we have balanced budget, so much so that I believe we talked a lot about this as a team and also with community. But there are times when I look also at, what's the difference in the word we see deficit in red versus what's an investment in the community. And when we have the fund balance, if you look at the history of the fund balance just in the recent years, it's grown significantly. And at some point, it's appropriate that we make an investment in fund balance. Now, using recurring costs and so forth, we've all talked about that. But I certainly see the building of an elementary school out of money that we've set aside and built so that we don't have to incur debt is a fantastic situation to be in, and to my mind, it doesn't incur a deficit. We are spending the money that we have put aside to for our costs. So when I get to the year that we're building that elementary school, I like to think that a little bit more as an investment, and the 2-month is what credit agencies, and I'm long been a stickler for making sure that we have absolutely top credit rating, but 2 months is far less. I think you had a slide earlier this evening on what the ending fund balance would be even in that year. Because 2 months is like
$74 million
$74 million.
roughly. We can go back to that slide, but yes.
Or that's okay. If we could just look at the multi-year one that shows the $9 million, because
Yeah,
I think
and
it's
it's actually
on
there, I
there.
think, so, okay. Actually, it's not on there, but,
Thank you, Ms. Powell. So when I look at that and look at it in context with the entire history back to 2010 to where we're going into 2017, and look at the $9 million number, which is very important because those numbers, when we, over time in the past, it has been problematic for the district. So I take this very, very seriously. But I take it and look at context with the entire chart, and I look at that ending fund balance in 14-15 at 156.1, which is that the right year? Yes, it's far, far, far in excess of where we would need for the best credit rating, and it would give us an opportunity to invest funds back into the district. So that's my reflection. Thank you for hearing me out.
Mr. Hibbs.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate this board because we can have a good civil conversation on something that we we all view. We've got a very conservative board, and I would remind everybody that when I came on 3 years ago, and we were looking at long-term deficits at that point, I was hounding this board and saying that we've got to be fiscally conservative, that, we're not going to drive our district into a point of insolvency, even though it wouldn't have come to that. But there was calls for TREs, all different type of things, and and this board made it through the toughest of times, and probably is one of the most financially stable school districts in the state. What I'm looking at this point, and so, I say that because I don't want us to be in a deficit situation. I saw us, over the years that I've served, be able to give raises 2 out of 3 years with the idea that if we try to get a 2% raise in future years, we would be in an insolvent situation, but we always manage to find that we've got more money. Our finance and accounting department does a great job, and we come around every year, and it seems like we've got, all except for the 1 year that the state took monies away, we work very, maybe frugally in this district, and those numbers seem to go up. I'm not concerned that if we got aggressive and we went with the 3% and we went with the 1.8 and we were able to make the adjustments, that our employees would think that, man, we're entitled to so much more next year. Everybody's going to ask. It's the job of good unions to go and say, hey, we want to fight on behalf of our people. It's our responsibility to be fiscally responsible. And Mr. Pompa, I totally agree. I mean, when you're talking about being a private business owner, this is money that comes out of your pocket. If you're looking and saying, wow, I make those type of, am I being too aggressive? When we say that we want to hire and retain the best, I know at least when I'm looking at my compensation from my corporation, benefits is a big part of it. Benefits is a big part of it. So I do equate salary and benefits in it, and that would be health insurance. And I wavered on this. If you talked to me 3 months ago, I probably would have said we probably don't need to do an adjustment on the insurance. A salary increase is going to be enough. But that was before I saw what the state came out in the increases. You couple what we decreased by the $20 a few years ago, and then the increase that took place, just say it's $10, I mean, that's a 12% increase that our employees are facing just in this next year, and then their deductibles are so much higher. The reason that I think that I do believe that we're in a good, sound fiscal position, and thus is the reason why I'm encouraging that we go ahead and include that with the 3%. I just don't buy that in the 2014-15 year that we're incurring this increased deficit when we're talking about that is only because we're putting in a brand new school. I don't buy that. And if we have to hurry a bond election or something up further, I would say we do it. But I think at this time, it's the right thing to do, to go with the 3% and with the increase in the insurance. I'm willing to make a motion of such. Okay, well, at some point, we probably need to come to a point where we either handle these as two separate or put them all in one and make the decision to go ahead and have a motion and move forward, because we can make a motion and then we still have discussion on top of it as a reminder to the president.
And I would say, we believe Mr. Pompa would ask to give him the privilege first, and we need that discussion if we would have two separate motions.
Okay.
Mr. Barron.
My suggestion was going to be that we split these into two items and have two motions, and that, because we had such a good discussion, just to clarify.
Agree with that, Mr. Barron. Ms. Pena?
Can you put that back up? I did some calculation because that number, 9 million, I'm just trying to make a point of, so we actually know what it is we're doing here. If we take those numbers do not include the salary increase. So if we give a 3% salary increase, and we give
I'm sorry, this does
says right there on
include-
your legend, none.
You're right. Beyond this year, it does reflect the 3% for the 13-14 year and then carries that out, but
Okay.
not additional increases beyond 13-14.
So I'll take that off, and bottom line is when you add up all these things we're talking about adding, that becomes a $19 million deficit. It still leaves us with a nice, healthy fund balance.
Oh, that's right.
No, because we're not only just increasing the health thing, we're doing the equity adjustment.
The
Ms.
salary.
Powell, what would that,
Right.
to clarification for the board, what would that be?
For 14-15, if we, first of all, what is modeled here includes a 3% increase in the 13-14 year, so that note at the bottom had not been updated from the previous versions of this. 13-14 year plus the equity adjustments, no future raises, and no health insurance added back in. So if we were to do the health insurance on top of the 3% salary increase and the equity adjustments, then that deficit in the 14-15 year would become almost 11 million, be 10.8 million.
The equity adjustments?
The equity adjustments are in there and the salary increase for 13-14.
Okay, I'm talking about
and
the additional one for the 20 years that we were talking about.
that's not in there. That's going to be pretty minimal, I think.
Well, it should be based on the numbers I saw, but when I looked at some of this other data that you gave, it was a lot higher, and I thought, I don't think it can be that high, but I'm using the numbers on here.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the bottom line then? What is either way, I'm saying we have well, no matter which direction, even if we did go in a $22 million deficit, we still would have a healthy ending fund balance. But since it's not the 22 million, what is it?
Well, again, what you see at 14-15, okay, if we did everything we've talked about doing tonight that's already in here, plus then we added in the raising the health insurance contribution that's not modeled here, then you would have a deficit in the 14-15 year of 10.8 million.
And but that still doesn't include the minimal equity
Right,
adjustments.
and we've got to go back and calculate what that is, but not significant.
Okay, I know we refer to it as a deficit, but really it isn't. We'll always have a balanced budget because of our ending fund balance.
We talk in the accounting world about operating surpluses, and that would be your year-to-year recurring operating expenses. Your capital expenses then certainly would drive that into that deficit position. But in terms of just our operating expenses, there would not be a deficit.
Right, and I just want to make sure
Yeah.
the public realizes that we really would not go into
Exactly.
a deficit. We actually have the funds to
Without the
support.
capital outlay, right.
Thank you.
Mr. Pompa?
Thank you, President Barron. Just one last thing I'll say on the additional $2 million. Old habits die hard. You know, I understand the desire to take care of our employees. I think it's good. You know, generally when I'm spending my money, I'm looking at what am I getting in return for it. I'm always, and you guys know, I'm always asking, what are we getting as a result of spending those dollars there? And $2 million, I mean, you know, it's not our own money, it's other people's money. It's a little easier to spend other people's money, but it's still $2 million bucks. And so I'm thinking about, you know, are there other areas where we could spend $2 million? And, you know, where are we going to get our best return on our investment? If I spend $2 million here, what am I getting in return? Am I getting better student achievement rates? Am I getting higher student participation? You know, what of the objectives that we laid out in our strategic plan, you know, am I getting more of that? Personnel, you know, I don't know that we have a lot of metrics, so that one's a little tough. I understand, I mean, I totally understand the desire to take care of employees. I do that all the time with my own employees. But I continue to go back and say, okay, what other ways could we spend $2 million on that we could get measurable return on that investment? So anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to say. If we're ready to make a motion, I definitely think it's probably a good idea, since we all seem to agree on the 3% and the equity adjustments, that I make a motion on that, and then someone else could make a motion.
Give us just a second, and I will ask the board to please break it up into two motions.
Okay, yeah, and I was
because
just
I do
gonna say-
think that's the will of the board to make it through that. We do have Mr. Barron have a lot, and I would like to say a few words before we have a motion. Sure.
Ms. Powell, can you put that last slide back up, the one that's got all the surpluses at the bottom, the fund balance? Because we budget conservatively, there's no way that ending fund balance line will ever go down unless we spend more than we take in. It will keep increasing. At some point, the state's going to say, enough is enough, and they will come in and take that money. Or we need to lower the tax rate. And that's another discussion item. All right? And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Dr. Rush.
With regards to that slide that was just up,
Not so quick, Ms. Powell, not so quick.
You could probably have a seat.
Yeah.
No, we're good.
I really think that's what Ms. Powell is thinking. Please let me sit down.
There we go.
Yeah, no retirement, please.
I just, to expand on that point, our budgets are always very conservative. The assumptions are extremely conservative, and I applaud you for that. And in this year, you know, we have property value growth assumption at 1%. I know you presented this the last time or time before. Can you tell us what the expected or approximate it is right now?
Right. We have received the May preliminary values, and then we use our history of the relationship between those values and July 25th to project out what we think this year's July 25th values will be. And right now, we are projecting that our values will be up about 4.1%.
That's what I was thinking. And we don't know. Those are just projections. Those are good projections. I would definitely think we may not have people leaving for health insurance costs. We may, and it's not stated. We definitely have people, at least I have people that in this district that come to me as staff stating that they're netting less than they were 5 years ago. And with our strategic plan and everything that we're asking our administrative team and our entire district to do with us to make this a premier, globally acknowledged district. $2 million added on to forecasted 17-18, 175.8 ending fund balance, bring it down to 173.8. I'm fine with that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Hi, Ms. Powell. I understand what my colleagues are saying, and if we're looking to spend $1.8 million for insurance, I can understand that. What I'm not comfortable with is by just adding it to premiums, the inflexibility we have. Because the one thing we don't know is what's going to truly happen with healthcare. So, if we're looking, because I understand premiums have gone up, deductibles have gone up. I can understand that, and I can understand part of the total compensation plan. I can say I'm willing to spend the $1.8 million. I'm not comfortable putting in premiums. I think adding something a little different and innovative that other districts haven't been doing, and the reason I would say our benefits committee probably hasn't looked at health reimbursement arrangements is you have to really have them proposed to you to be able to consider them. I have a feeling if we went back and looked, they looked at HSAs. HSAs are no benefit to us whatsoever. We are a fully insured entity. The only reason you add an HSA is if you're trying to seed some money and then move your employees to a high deductible health plan, so you're offering seed money for them to move that. What that does on a self-insured plan is it lowers your risk, lowers your claim cost is what it does, because it's putting more onto the employee. So HSAs are not a good plan. We still have FSAs. You can offer those with an HRA. HRA is employer funded that comes in. So if you're looking to $420, then you can add that. I would even say you either add just the $420 through an HRA, health reimbursement arrangement, so that then when they have a deductible, they submit that receipt and it's automatically reimbursed to them, or you can do it where you reimburse $250 to every single employee, even the ones that don't have insurance with us, to provide flexibility. Where that changes is that HRA reimbursement amount is much easier to fluctuate each year. It's a much easier fix of what they're being reimbursed each year than what is coming out of premiums. Because I could probably ask the question to Ms. Powell, when was the last time before the previous 2 years ago that we reduced premiums? It's probably been a while, correct?
It has. I can't remember.
And with health insurance in the flux, and the costs have gone up, and that's a concern. That's why I would sit there and say I'm willing to spend it. I'm just not comfortable voting on it for just adding more money to the premium cost. It is where I'll stand. I would also propose that you can always add an HRA after our tax rates officially come out, and we vote on them in August or September. Also, as legislature finally finishes, we start getting TEA, and we see what the financial lawsuits against the state of Texas are going to come back with to show us a little more fluctuation in the future years. And the biggest point of what the healthcare exchanges are going to cost in the state of Texas. Because, I don't know. Guess what? The federal government doesn't know. Our Texas Insurance Commissioner doesn't know yet. I'm sure they've seen numbers. They haven't been released. And that's the change that has me concerned, because those health reimbursement arrangements. And so, Ms. Powell, I don't even think you and your staff know exactly what the health reimbursement arrangements would fully cost us yet, because there is somewhat a very small administration fee.
Right, exactly.
And that's part of cost of doing business. But I think from flexibility and for the district as a whole, and I also know we do have in our strategic plan some wellness initiatives in the future that we'd like to do for employees. It's very easy if you had an HRA to then add wellness initiatives onto that HRA, and if certain things are completed, that can then be a reimbursable amount to the HRA. I know I've thrown a wrench in that because it is not an easy piece to talk about. I think my main point of that is I'm just not comfortable voting on it right now. So with that, unless we have more discussion, we would be more than willing to take a motion.
I'll make a motion then that we approve the column, the fifth iteration of the recommendation, which includes a 3% with the equity adjustments as Ms. Powell worked out there on column 5. Plus the working on the 20-year adjustment to bring us up a little bit. Well, is that too vague?
Let's be, yes.
Okay.
So please, are you trying, what's the number going to be? Because if you're saying working on it, what's that going to be?
Well, then I'll make a motion that we just do that, and then you guys can
Column
amend it,
5?
right? Yeah, because
We
you
can,
amend that.
without a
yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we approve that proposed budget with a 3% increase and the equity adjustments year 1 through 15.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for column 5. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All trustees present voting in the affirmative. Thank you, Ms. Powell. Number 5. Now we'll move on to the discussion of we just did salary adjustments, insurance adjustments. Do we have a motion?
I have a question, not a
Go
motion.
ahead, Ms. Solons.
Mr. Hogg, you were mentioning earlier with the other options that may be available to us. Were you suggesting that maybe we should look at the insurance piece as a budget amendment to vet out that further over the summer and then wait for more information to be released this fall?
That would be my recommendation, just because I would like to see what, not that we're going to have any clarification. Listen, I'm not going to say the federal government's going to have clarification come September. They could totally butcher it, and they may push Affordable Care Act back another 6 months. You hear people trying to repeal it. It's not going to get repealed of what's happening. So yes, we could do a budget amendment when we have more clarification. They're supposed to have rates out sometime in July or August is when rates are supposed to be out. A lot of other states are rolling out their rates for their exchanges, but they're also ones that have opened their own insurance exchanges, not waiting for the federal government, which I think there's 26 or maybe 31 states that are part of the federal government. So yes, we could do a budget amendment in the future, or we could have Ms. Powell do more research in this next week to see what the estimated cost could be.
President Hogg, I'd like to motion that we restore the health insurance to $260, which would be equivalent to $1.832 million.
Okay, we have a motion? Do we have a second? I have a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Hibbs and a second by Dr. Reich. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Pena.
Thanks for bringing that information forward. It makes me more comfortable with the vote I'm going to.
Thank you, Ms. Pena. Any other discussion? Please vote. Difficult vote. All trustees present, 4-3, the motion fails. All trustees present, 4-3, motion fails. Sorry. It's been a long day. I could say many a things, so thank you, Mr. Pompa, for clarification. Okay, Mr. Barron, or Dr. Rush?
That's even worse than Mr. Pompa. Can we, seeing we didn't articulate the equity adjustment for that 20-year, I would ask that Ms. Powell come back next time with that specific number that we
Yeah.
can
We
could
consider.
do that, yeah.
I think that's a fair request, and then just at any time during the year, we can always make amendment
Right.
to anything we're working on. So by all means, Ms. Powell, I think that's a fair request for a little more clarification for the
Sure.
group. Thank you, Board, for that discussion as we move through the budget another week. It's always an interesting. Always tough decisions, good decisions. So now let's go on to open forum for non-agenda items. This second open forum segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to address the trustees on any subject except personnel. This is not intended to be a discussion or debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments on an individual will not be tolerated. I have 2 cards from our audience. When your name is called, please step to the podium. You will have 5 minutes to speak. A lighted timer on the podium will assist you in pacing your presentation. A yellow light will illuminate when there is 1 minute left for you to complete your presentation. When the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, please end your presentations. Our 2 speakers know these rules on this. Up first, we have Ms. Stephanie Hudson, representing ATPE for a presentation of donation to the Arlington Education Foundation. Ms. Hudson, how are you tonight?
I'm good.
Good to
My
see you.
contacts are drying out, so I'm not winking at you.
Well, it's not 10 yet,
Okay.
Ms. Hudson. You can't. It's early for us right now, usually.
Good evening, Superintendent Cavazos, President Hogg, and other members of the board. I'm Stephanie Hudson, the ATPE President for Arlington, and tonight we just wanted to take a really brief moment to recognize the hard work of the board and the dedication to all our students and teachers that you display all the time. We'd like to express our gratitude with making a donation to the Education Foundation in your names, in the names of all the school board members. Thank you again for all you do for the district employees and our students. And we just wanted to let you know that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Next, we have Mr. Luis Castillo from a disparate treatment of parents. Mr. Castillo, good evening again tonight.
Good evening, President Hogg, Dr. Cavazos, board members. First and foremost, congratulations to 2 of the incumbents that got reelected. You were not my choice, but it is what it is. And hopefully next time around you'll be in my favorite list. Anyways, I want to talk about disparate treatment of parents. As we all know that parent involvement is one of the goals in the strategic goal in the plan. And part of the educational process for parents and their kids is to have breakfast and lunch during their school days. And that's an experience that I have shared. I'm pretty sure that you as parents have at one time shared with your kids. And it's all fine and dandy, but the thing is that there's some schools, and it just so happens that in East Arlington, at the beginning of this school year that's ending, there were 5 schools that had scheduled breakfast, lunch for parents. It was not open like other schools where parents can go anytime during the week and have breakfast or lunch with their kids, you know, like most schools in West or other parts of Arlington. This particular school, they had a schedule. For example, one school had, like on Mondays, only first grade parents could go and have lunch or breakfast. And the other days, you know, so on by grades. And, you know, I met with one particular principal, and of course, overcrowding has nothing to do with it, because previous principals did not have such a policy. So it varies from principal to principal. I met with one particular principal, and I brought the concern to her. And it took about 3 months, meetings, emails, telephone calls, back and forth, to finally change the practice in some form or fashion. And it should have not taken 3 months. It shouldn't be there in the first place. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if it was an elementary school in your neighborhood, it wouldn't be in place. So why is this things happening in East Arlington? I think that the parents there are not being treated fairly. And I think that's something that the board should look. Now, this is a practice that carried on from the previous administration. And the previous administration probably took the position that it was the principal's call. This issue was brought up to the current administration. And at the beginning of this year, there were still 5 schools in East Arlington that I'm aware of. There could be more, or maybe some of them already did away with it, that had this breakfast lunch schedule. And it's disturbing that the school controls and dictates to the parents when they can have lunch or breakfast with their kids. Especially if we want the parents to get involved with their kids, you know, here we are giving them a schedule. You know, and I think that Recently, some board members have expressed a keen interest in East Arlington. At least that's what they purport. And I hope that maybe they get on board and make that change. You know, I think personally, I think that one phone call should have taken care of that particular school that I deal with, which was Crow Elementary, and they changed it. And I basically think that just a phone call would have taken care of it. But no, it took 3 months. And I have a whole list of emails back and forth, you know, the resistance to change. And I keep saying, well, you know, we don't have this in West Arlington or South or North. You know, why do we have it in East Arlington? You know, I have the names of the schools, you know, but I think as a professional courtesy, I'm not going to reveal the other schools. Give maybe the principals the opportunity to change it. But I hope that maybe some board members will get on board and make that happen. It should have not come to this point where I need to come in and address the school board on this issue. It should have happened at the campus level. It shouldn't be there to begin with. And then if that didn't happen, it should have happened at the administration level. If that didn't happen, then why am I here? Because of this, because it didn't happen. So I'm hoping and appealing to the board that maybe make it happen for the next school year, that this policy, specifically in East Arlington, be done away with. I did survey some schools randomly in West Arlington. None of them have them. And I'm pretty sure that some of you can relate to the importance of parents having lunch and breakfast with their kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Next on the agenda, we have superintendent's report. As we just had one last week, we do not have one this evening. Correct,
That's correct. No report.
Cavazos? It hadn't been long since we've seen each other. I understand that. Next on the agenda, we have school board's report. Do any school board members have items? Mr. Hibbs.
I'd like to give my report. We all went through graduations, and that was what a wonderful thing. I mean, to be able to sit through the graduations and see our excellent seniors and how they've excelled. And, you know, I was asked a question this last week, and they said, oh, why, by just average citizen out there that just said, you know, why is it that private schools can seem to excel so much more than a public school? And, you know, I made a comment, and I'll stand by this. I would take any one of our top 12 graduates from any one of our schools and put them up against any private school's top 12 graduates. Our kids are given the opportunity to have an awesome education. They receive it, and I think they receive even a wider, more rounded education in the public school system. So that's kudos that goes out to our administration, goes out to our teachers and our staff, and to the students themselves. Because in a lot of ways, they're overcoming a lot of obstacles. Especially, you know, it's easy for maybe some families that's a little bit more affluent that can go and afford to put a child in a private school. But I saw kids graduate the other day that came from some pretty tough situations that were at the top of their class. Sam Houston has 2 kids going to TCU and on full rides, and you know that's where I went. So I'm excited about that, and I think that's just an amazing deal. I think it's just an amazing deal. I don't know if I could get into TCU now. You know,
probably not.
Probably not. I mean, probably not. And then I also want to give kudos to this board for a couple of things. Today we're going through the Southern Leadership Institute and being able to for the TASB and getting our accreditations that's required by the state. And anyway. Mr. Barron, Mr. Pompa, Ms. Pena, President Hogg, Dr. Cavazos, Cindy Powell, Dr. Reich, they all presented on behalf of the Arlington Independent School District 2 different sessions. And to be honest with you, I've sat through a lot of sessions over the course of the years, and the ones that I sat through this morning, I found ours to be amazing. And these guys worked, and Leslie, I'm sorry, Leslie, she that woman probably worked harder than everybody, but they did an amazing job, and I'm so proud of this board. And even when we have tough votes and tough discussions, like we did just 10 minutes ago, you see how respectful this board is for one another. We can walk away and I didn't win that one, but you know what? The points were made, and there were good, valid points. And this board is working so well together, and I got to compliment each one of you because you know we bring a lot of different, diverse opinions and thoughts, and it's good that we have that interchange of ideas. So from that standpoint, I would like to give kudos to the board too.
Hibbs. Ms. Pena.
Thank you. Well, as our illustrious superintendent stated in one of his other presentations, we had 3,700 students graduate, but we also had 3,700 kindergartners come in.
Yeah,
so we're kind of balancing it out. So we went to these graduations, and they were Thursday through Sunday. So that tells you we all attended every one of them, what commitment was here. Well, Mr. Hogg had to go to his nephew's graduation. I also attended the administration and annex service recognition and retirement ceremony and the counselor's annual scholarship luncheon. That was all on the same day. That was a lot of stuff. And Mr. Hibbs, it's summer leadership. But
Yeah.
it's Thursday. We started today, so it started at 7:30 this morning.
Last night, Ms. Pena.
Well, last night, and then it started 7:30 this morning for today, went to 4:15, and from there we came here for this meeting, and tomorrow it will start again at 7:30, and Saturday as well. So we're going to get our training. Now, I want to let you know that I will not be at next week's meeting, but it's a bragging moment for me. As you know, a couple of years ago, my older brother passed away, and his son, David, moved in with me. Well, next week I will be attending David's graduation from basic training, because he joined the Army, at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So I'm sorry I won't be here, but I'm happy to be there. I'm very proud of him. He's going to be one of our new soldiers. So I'll miss you. Thank you.
He'll have a little less hair and a little more muscle, Ms. Pena, so, and probably a different attitude. Dr. Reich.
Thank you, President Hogg. I don't have a whole lot to say. Mr. Hibbs said just about every single thing I was going to say. So graduations were wonderful, 3,700 flying out the nest into the world. Great job, team. I'm proud of all the work that we're doing. The only thing that I haven't heard discussed, the Masons had a scholarship awards presentation for many students in our district that they do. The Masons are a great community partner. They're very engaged. We appreciate what they do, and didn't have much time, but stopped by there and heard an amazing performance on I don't remember what it's called. It's like it's not a xylophone, big standing thing, what is it? Marimba. An amazing song that this student played, and it's a graduating senior from Lamar. It was just an example highlighting the wonderful things that our kids do. So I thank the Masons, and congratulations to all those scholarship recipients. And then we did have our on that note as well, Wall of Fame induction that same night, where we honored some great things going on with our children in this district. So it's very good to be part of this district. It's very good to see the graduations, the things that we vet back and forth up here is all about having our children be as prepared as possible and successful. So we've got 3,700 more out into the world, and lots of accolades for those that are still in the system. Lots more to come, and I won't be here next week either. On that note of kids flying the nest, mine's getting ready to go next year. She's a senior, so we're going to be out on college visits and doing things to see how poor I will be over the next several years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Mr. Pompa.
Thank you, President Hogg. I'll get it right. So yeah, between last week and this week, we haven't had a whole lot of chance to do a whole lot, but the graduations were tremendous. And as just about everybody that spends any time with me knows, I'm a numbers guy. One of the numbers that stuck out with me was Martin High School announced the amount of scholarships that they had. And I just calculated on a per graduating student, it was somewhere around $17,000 of scholarship money that these students received. So kind of to piggyback on what Mr. Hibbs was saying, I think we have tremendous opportunities for all our students in all the high schools to get a remarkable and amazing education today. Another number that sticks out with me today, we had a presentation, or last night, we had a presentation on the legislative, kind of a wrap-up on the legislative session. One of the numbers that jumped out at me, and I think we all did the calculation, because I hadn't thought of it this way, of how much we spend per hour per employee to educate our students. And when we, based on our budget, as it was last year, the number of days that we educate each student, and the number of hours that they spend in the classroom, doesn't include any of the extracurricular and all the other things that we do for our students. The cost per student on an hourly rate is $5.73. That's how much taxpayers are spending for us to educate their students. The vast majority of daycare centers charge more than that. And for that rate, we're giving them students that come out with $17,000 or $18,000 in scholarships, with full rides to TCU, with acceptance into MIT and some of the best universities in the country. So, you know, I've always been a supporter of public education, and I think this is part of the reason, because we know when it works right, it is a great thing, and we can educate a huge number of students very well and give them a great opportunity for a wonderful life. Also, yes, congratulations. I think to the whole board, everybody knows I love our strategic plan. I want to live and breathe it. I talk about it all the time. And today, to make that presentation, and specifically to Dr. Reich and Mr. Hogg for leading each of those committees for the strategic plan and for the legislative agenda, we know we love it, and we've had great response from our city. But when we presented each of those today to school districts across the state, small, large, very progressive school districts, some very small school districts that, you know, are just trying to get going, we had tremendous response on both of those presentations, on the process, the collaboration, the actual product that we turned out, both in the legislative agenda and the strategic plan. So again, congratulations to the board, to the staff, and everybody that worked on both of these presentations, but also on the actual agenda and the strategic plan. I think today we got confirmation that it was a job well done. So thank you.
Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. The Wall of Fame pictures that we mentioned will be on the wall out here starting Monday. Next week. Next week, I'm told.
Yeah.
I'm not going to guarantee Monday.
Don't pressure.
Yeah. And we have two more meetings coming up, right? The regular meeting on the 20th, where we hope to vote the budget, and we've got another meeting on the 27th, where we're going to do...
One of the main pieces that night, Mr. Barron, is we'll be covering a curriculum audit, and is the main piece that evening, and some accountability review.
Okay, and that'll be it for the year.
It'll be
That'll
what?
be it for the year, right?
For the fiscal year, yes, sir.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you, President Barron. I'm just glad I haven't hit a button right now, so that's what I'm going on. The next item is employee grievance hearing. We do not have an employee grievance tonight. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Secretary, do we have any items to consider?
Just the Ms. Powell bringing back that equity adjustment for the 20-year.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. It is 9:54 p.m. and this meeting's adjourned.